We represent 98,000 nurses working outside hospitals in Australia. That's a significant workforce, and we know from our data that a third of them are underutilised. So they're never or rarely working to their full scope of practice. And could you imagine having a workforce, no matter what sector is in, where a third of them weren't actually doing everything they could every day for the success, or in this case, the health of the country? And so our goal, and we've actually made this a real mantra for the members, is to make sure that nurses aren't underutilised, that they are helping make Australia healthier.
Welcome to Season 4 of the Manage Self, Lead Others podcast with Nina Sunday, CSP, for experienced and aspiring people managers. This show helps you explore ways to become a more intentional leader. Each episode, host Nina Sunday speaks with some of the brightest business minds on the planet who share a passion to elevate and transform team culture. Workplace culture hides in plain sight. Is yours flourishing? Join the movement to make your workplace a better place to work. Are you ready? Because it's time to manage self, lead others.
Ken Griffin is Chief Executive Officer of the Australian Primary Healthcare Nurses Association, APNA, the national peak body for primary healthcare nurses. Ken is passionate about creating a healthier Australia and is changing healthcare, driving growth, and leading advocacy and operational improvement. Under Ken's leadership, APNA achieved double-digit growth in membership, diversified its income streams, and increased its policy and advocacy impact. With a Bachelor of Communications and Diploma of Arts, Ken Griffin has over 20 years of experience in strategic planning, stakeholder engagement, and business development. Ken also publishes in academic journals and online on healthcare issues and challenges. Welcome, Ken Griffin.
Thanks for having me, Nina. It's great to be here.
Now, I thought our listeners, if any of our listeners do lead a membership association, they might like to know some tips on how you achieved double-digit growth in membership, especially in an era where that's more difficult than ever before. So in order to grow membership, people do nurses ever contact you by phone, or is it always via the website? And how do you nurture a brand new inquiry?
Yeah, really good question. I'm going to start with the big picture stuff. And I mean, my background has always been corporate. And so coming into an organization that's got a not-for-profit status and is really important. But I mean, not-for-profit is really a legal definition of a legal entity. It doesn't define how you operate. And so we've never gone cap in hand. We've really said we're a peak organization. And as a peak organization, that sort of gives you a different stance to charity. And so that doesn't mean that we operate differently, but our stance is most definitely different. And that means that when we speak to our members and any of our stakeholders, we speak with authority, we speak knowing our place. And in our case, we represent 98,000 nurses working outside hospitals in Australia. That's a significant workforce. And we know from our data that a third of them are underutilised. So they're never or rarely working to their full scope of practice. And could you imagine having a workforce, no matter what sector is in, where a third of them weren't actually doing everything they could every day for the success, or in this case, the health of the country? And so our goal, and we've actually made this a real mantra for the members, is to make sure that nurses aren't underutilised, that they are helping make Australia healthier. Because with 33,000 underutilised, we can definitely do better than that. But also with the other 2/3 who are working well, we want to make sure that they can continue to keep making the country healthier.
You talk about advocacy. So what are some issues that you've performed advocacy for and been successful in?
Yeah, so if you've been in Australia and you pay any attention to health, you would have heard of the Strengthening Medicare Task Force. That was a big commitment from the current government when they came in to really look at what primary healthcare could become and how it could deliver greater health and reduce the weight on our hospital system. So our president, Karen Booth, who I work closely with, is on that particular committee. That's really reshaping a lot of health. But also the government's looking at how it uses the health workforce more efficiently to deliver a better health outcomes. And the scope of practice review is a big thing that's coming through. And these are just examples of where the government is trying to find better ways to utilise the finite resource of health workforce as well. It's interesting because we've had big impact in all of those, and in many. I mean, if we talked a couple of years ago, nurses really didn't get a seat at the table. Besides being, well, despite the fact that they're the largest workforce in healthcare, so making sure nurses got to that table so they could be part of decision making was the first bit. The next bit, though, was really making sure that we weren't passengers. And so we've invested a lot of time in making sure that when we are at the policymakers table, we've got plenty to contribute, that it's evidence-based, and it really has an impact. So we're not going to be sitting there being passive, and that means having the right people actually able to advocate for us too.
Well, there's two aspects I want to follow on with, Ken. One is the fact that when I've worked with your people, they were all over Australia. So a lot of your people are working remotely with your head office in Melbourne. So what are the challenges and what are the successes of having a remote workforce?
Yeah, well, we went into COVID with a best candidate in Melbourne policy when we hired. So everyone except for the board was pretty much Melbourne based. We came out of COVID with a best candidate in Australia policy, and we had to do a whole heap of change in that time. So I remember back in 2019, we had about 19 people in APNA. We had 6 laptops. None of them were the same brand. Everyone was on desktops, and we'd just gone on to Microsoft Teams at the start of 2020. So we were already set up as far as the software systems we were using. We'd just gone to an offsite service provider for our IT. So that enabled us. But we're certainly behind on the laptop thing. But we came out of COVID with about 35 more people than we started COVID with. So COVID was significant growth for us. So we didn't just go home and do the same old, same old. We kind of reinvented most of what we did, including the tech stack that it was sitting on, and the type of hardware that we used. And we also came out about 2.5 times larger than we went in. So we've had to, and I'm not saying that we've cracked this at all, but what we have done is really rolled with it and let our people know that, hey, we're still learning as well. So we're going to test the water with a number of things. What we really did, and I think it's paid a lot of dividends for us, has been on the way out of COVID, we decided we weren't going to go back to an office-centric culture. And by that, I mean, it was everyone wanted to get back together from the Melbourne-based people. But what we did was we decided we weren't going to have, the standard organizational town hall meetings with us in the big training room and then everyone else dialing in and maybe being able to hear 2/3 of it, with all the microphone issues when someone asks a question, you can't hear them up the back of the room. So you feel you missed out. We actually went the other way and we decided every meeting was going to have the same, everyone was going to have the same experience on every meeting, which meant all of our whole team meetings are actually all held online. We use Microsoft Teams, but that means everyone's equal in that moment of coming together as a team. And for the people who are presenting, they're actually only having to present in one way, which is handy for them too. But we also have gone out of our way to make sure that there isn't this sense of, if you're in the office, you get everything. And then if you're sort of working remotely, you don't get much. So everyone gets stuff on their birthdays. If we're doing something on like an activity and we've got something happening in the office, then we send something out to everyone who's working from home. And that means that they can be part of that as well. We often try to do hybrid events for the social stuff too. And if we can't do that, we try to get everyone in the different states together if they're nearby, but we make sure that they get something to do socially as well. And that's great. At the moment, we're doing the 10,000 step challenge. And so we've got remote teams working together to do some of the challenges with that. So it's not just 10,000 steps a day. We have a few other challenges every week that teams have to do. Everyone gets involved and we work on that basis, that actually, it's not that you're a second-class citizen if you're working remotely. Everyone gets something on their birthday. If we're sending out pizzas to everyone because it's International Pizza Day, or donuts because it's International Donut Day, we have a bit of fun with that. And we also have recognized, everyone in marketing talks about surprise and delight, but it tends to go by the wayside with staff sometimes. And so every team member, they'll get a dozen donuts on International Donut Day, and we don't tell them it's coming. We just make sure everyone gets it, right? And it's it's a bit of joy in everyone's day when they can go, hey, actually, my employer gave a damn, and they wanted me to feel surprised as well.
That's nice. And that 10,000 steps, that's kind of a national event that you as an organisation decided to participate in along with other organisations, right?
Yeah, that's right. So there's a healthy dose of competitiveness. We might be a not-for-profit, but it means that we still like our numbers, and so and that definitely plays out in the 10,000 step challenge. We have a lot of subterfuge and a lot of healthy competition between the teams in our particular organisation.
That's great, and that keeps the engagement. And what's the number of team members at the moment?
Yeah, so we're about 65 at the moment.
65.
And then we've got others who are casuals in some of the projects that we run. But you can see from that early days in late 2018 when we started with 19 to be up at 65 now, you can see the growth that we've had in 5 or 6 years.
That's great. And all according to your leadership, which is fantastic. Thanks, Ken.
Definitely a team effort, that's for sure.
Yeah. And okay, so as a member, do members get to attend events? Do you have sort of events that your membership can attend?
Yeah, we certainly do. And the footprint of the events has changed a bit, partly because of COVID. So our premier event is really our Festival of Nursing. Previously, that was a national conference, but we changed that because we changed the format, and we thought nurses don't just want to be educated. The real defining factor of primary healthcare nurses is that their best work is done one-on-one with the patient behind a closed door. So they're kind of professionally isolated in many ways because, when you keep walking into a room and closing the door, you don't really talk about what happens in there with anyone when you go out. It is isolating. And so when we bring them together, we make sure that we don't just educate them. And we really say anyone can educate a nurse, but they can't give them that sense of like fulfillment and that joy and that sort of spring in the step. So we want to send them back home with a real sense of purpose and that they connected with other nurses and they found their people. And so we don't have a sit down dinner at our conference. We have a party. There was a particularly rowdy one in Adelaide this year at the end of July when we had that, really well attended and just a lot of fun because we sat there about I was on the board of APNA before I became CEO, but we sat there about 8-9 years ago and we thought, why do we do the sit down thing? Everyone likes to dress up, but it's like they don't like the formality. It's they want to actually be able to blow off a bit of steam. And if you're interstate and you've paid your fare and your accommodation and your cost of the conference, like you actually want to have a smile on your face, right? So let's just let our hair down a bit, and certainly our members really reward that. There's a different feeling to that event compared to other medical or healthcare conferences, and we're not scared to have a bit of fun, and our members have gone with us every time we've gone that way.
Isn't that wonderful, Ken? That's fantastic.
Why have a meeting when you can have a party?
Yeah, wonderful. Well, any nurses listening to this, if you haven't joined yet, get going. So I've been always impressed by your focus on leadership and culture. So where does that come from? How did you get enlightened to know that if you focus on purpose and culture, the result?
This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV insurance at Progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Pet injuries and additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
Let's follow.
Yeah, so I think there's two sides to that. So I think there's the internal team in the organization, and then there's particularly the membership and your stakeholders, because we're trying to set a new bar with how people engage with health. And health is really driven by a lot of invisible tripwires when you go out on like engaging with stakeholders. There's also a sense of there's never enough money to go into health, which is in every country, in every health system. And so there tends to be a sense of if someone gets something, I probably didn't get something. And it's not helpful when you're trying to have change to benefit people. So I guess from that outside in, we really make sure that we're actually trying to look at the bigger picture. And we do that by making sure we don't just think about nurses. We also think about the systems, and we think about the other health professions nurses work with, which is all of them. And we look at, well, how do we all rise on a high tide? And so, for instance, at our national, our Festival of Nursing in Adelaide, we actually did something that hasn't really been done before. And that was we had a congress of 60 leaders from across healthcare, bringing them together in a room. Now, it was a really brave thing to do. We didn't know if it was going to be a complete bin fire, but we took the leap. We used our relationships and trust that we'd established through a primary healthcare alliance that we'd created. And actually, we brought these people together. And guess what? They all want to do it again because they never get to talk to people because they're so used to throwing grenades over the fence at each other that actually they found out they've got a lot in common. And so it's that kind of thing where when we talk about a culture of leadership, it's not just within our organization, it's out further as well. But there's other things we've done. And for instance, we've only been around for 23 years as an organization. So unlike a lot of, the standard professional organizations with your royal colleges of whatever, we're actually quite young compared to a lot of the others that have been around for 50 to 100 years. And one of the things that we've really done, we've got a founder who's actually still part of the organization, who started us back multiple years ago. And so we actually had our founder, Sam, actually create new values. Now, I've been in marketing and internal comms roles and corporate affairs roles where I've put in place a lot of values for organizations before, but it was fantastic doing it from the CEO role and actually getting through the process with members and the board and the team to actually really look at what people would like. And there's one value of the three that we've got that I'm particularly proud of, and it's positive disruptor. And
nice. Yes, I've come across postcards in your office saying that.
Yeah, that's right. And it's important. You can't take one off the other. Positive disruptor. You don't want to be a disruptor because anyone can walk into a room and break things, right? The positive disruption is all about seeking to understand first, and then actually understanding why things are the way they are, because there could have been some great reasons. They might be outdated or they might just be not in line with what we reckon, but you've got to understand why they're there first and then take some steps from there. And that's been a real galvanizing agent for our team internally. But then when we took it to the members, they love that. And it also holds us to higher account with, are we playing it safe? Is that the job? Does health require someone to play it safe? And I'm not talking about, do you take a risky move when you're treating a patient? I'm actually talking about when it comes to how we move the health system forward to better the health of more Australians. What does positive disruptor hold us to account to do in this particular situation? And it's great to have values that aren't just words on a wall. And it's great to have values that actually inspire people when they see them. So particularly proud of that one. But hopefully that gives you an example of how we sort of think it's not just about that cultural leadership internally and with our members, but it is actually the impact we have further out than that.
That's wonderful, Ken. And I'm curious to know what the other two cultures values are, please.
So we have pursue excellence, and that's really about how we make sure we continually improve. And then we have better together. And the better together isn't just about us as a team, and it's nice if we're all nice to each other. It's actually about sort of that inclusivity, but it's also about how we engage more broadly. So when I mentioned that Primary Healthcare Congress and bringing 60 leaders in health together, it's actually better together outside as well, not just going, we're better here because then, we're safer in numbers. It's actually getting out there and engaging with everyone.
Right. So where to from here? What big picture strategic plans that are not sort of trade secret? What can you share with us?
Yeah, so there's several things that we're doing at the moment. So the establishment of the values a year ago has actually got us remodeling a whole heap of things we're doing. So next year, we're going to actually launch our first fund, which is going to be a perennial fund that actually invests in positive disruption in health. We're going to be launching that. So I'm really excited about that because it's a big milestone and a sign of maturity in an organization to have a fund that we actually want to be perennial. The other one is that we're investing, and the board signed off a significant investment in tech. So we've actually taken a view that we're going to sort of run at, if you like, machine learning and AI and look at how that can have a distinct benefit for our members. And so, I think there's a lot of people talking about AI, but it's still motherhood statements. We're actively investing, and we're looking to have the first phase launched to our members next year at our Festival of Nursing in July. So you heard it here first. We're looking forward to building on that. But it's a really brave decision from a fantastic board that I work with, and also a team within the office that's really sort of done some hard yards to look at where would the value for our members be, and what would be something that would be living to our values from that context of positive disruption.
Fantastic. Running to the fire. Well, look, we're coming sort of to the end of our time, and it's going just like that. And talking to you, it's just you've got great fluency and just visionary ideals. What advice can you give to other CEOs about how to lead an organisation and make sure the culture is intact and positive while being a disruptor?
So I go back to some real basics, and the first one is language, common language. We've got a lot of phrases that you tend to hear when you're in APNA and when you're talking to APNA people. And I think that comes with like alignment. If people are talking differently in your organization, then where do you even start to make sure they understand each other? So common language about what you do. And in the case of a membership organization, really having that common language for them as well. With our members, it tends to be around things like being valued, visible, and respected. And so when they know we're out there talking in Canberra about them, they know that we're talking about them being valued, visible, and respected in policy, in pay, in all kinds of things. And so if you've aligned that language, then you've got the ultimate foundation to build up from, because everyone should understand each other at that point. And if you don't have understanding as your organisation gets larger, then things start fraying at the edges.
I love the alliteration of valued, visible, and
respected.
Visibility is interesting because really, as a member association, you only survive if you are visible, and you're kept in front of the eyes of the people who are the members. I guess, do you make it possible for members to actually connect online so they don't actually have to turn up?
Yeah. So we've got plenty of online offerings. I think some people have probably gone too far on that. We definitely keep a mix. So you can still call our nurse support line at any stage. We still have face-to-face meetings as well, but they can engage online too, and then with things like the podcast. So we make sure there's something for everyone. And we've made sure that if you're time poor, you've got to make sure not everyone wants a one-day event or a 1 hour online learning module or something like that. So it's actually making sure that our offerings fit into the busy lives of nurses who are busy at work, but they're largely female, and so they're largely picking up the lion's share at home too. So understanding that, and so really sitting in their shoes or standing in their shoes and realizing what will make it a bit easier for them.
So wonderful speaking with you today, Ken Griffin, and thank you for your time. I know as a CEO of an amazing member association, you have a lot on your plate. So thank you, and I feel privileged that you took the time today. Thanks for your time, Nina. It's great to be here. What a wonderful CEO is Ken Griffin. Every time I've interacted with his team and he's been present in the room, he always finds moments in the day to actually connect with the group and lead from the front with a few words that inspires people and makes them feel valued, visible and respected. Thanks for listening to Manage Self-Lead Others. My name is Nina Sunday. I'm the host of the Manage Self-Lead Others podcast show. And the good news is our listen score places us in the top 5% globally of all the podcasts in the world. Tell your friends to have a listen to Manage Self-Lead Others, because I love leading it. I love speaking with my guests. And until next time, bye for now.
Nina Sunday CSP is on a mission to help leaders transform culture. Nina Sunday travels from Brisbane, Australia to facilitate half-day or full-day workshops at your location anywhere across Australia. For a list of Nina's topics around leading people, productivity and communication, go to brainpowertraining.com.au signature programs to request a tailored proposal. To book Nina Sunday CSP to speak at your conference in Australia, New Zealand, Asia or internationally, head to ninasunday.com for details.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.